Hey everyone, this is Fred. Welcome to a new thing I'm going to be doing on my YouTube channel every now and then. I occasionally will watch people open Magic the Gathering booster packs. I don't know, it's a form of unboxing. It's kind of fun. Um, Today, I'm going to start with some low hanging fruit. I have this box of M 2015 from a couple of years ago, actually. Well, from 2015 where I bought it to do some drafts at work, and we just didn't really go through all the content that we had, and couldn't get enough players. So I have this unopened box now. Players who remember this set remember it as kind of a crappy set. It has a pretty low expected value, and like there's a couple of cool cards in there. If you pull some foils, there could be a nice price tag. But if I wanted to sell this box right now, probably buy list price is like between $60 and $70. Even on a more expensive site, this box only retails for about $80. So I kind of just want to see if I can recoup some of my lost value on this box with maybe a couple of the key rares. The good thing about the set is there's a couple of good cards in it that they're not valuable by any means, but if you don't have them, they're nice to have in your collection because they see play in EDH and some older formats. Things like the Pain Lands. There's also, this set had the sliver theme, so there's a couple of nice slivers in there if you want to play like sliver EDH. So we're just gonna go ahead, open this box, pull out the value cards, and see what we can get. Okay, so we're back with the contents of what I just opened. I just want to go over a few things. So overall, this is probably a pretty poor box. Like I said, this set was not anything special to write home to. There were a lot of duds in the set. It was highly thematic. This is the one where they let guests design cards. So in the foils I pulled, the notable ones, at least at the time, would have been Lightning Strike. It's a common. It's not as good as Lightning Bolt or anything. This would have been relevant had I pulled it at when this was in standard. But now no one is going to play this in any format, even in modern, because there's just much better burn. Lightning Bolt is legal in modern. Void Snare is okay because it is a sorcery. It sometimes sees play in wishboards, in vintage formats, possibly even legacy. So having one of is about the most you'll ever need. Really not worth anything, but nice all the same. Foil rare Spirit Bonds. Now a lot of the value of this set is conceivably tied up into getting a foil of a good rare. This is not. This is one of those highly thematic ones that was designed by a guest to Wizards. So probably like $1 card, if even, and the rest is kind of just forgettable. So in the rares and mythics, so funny enough, this was a. Had I opened this box during standard and had I been playing standard at the time, this would have been an excellent box. So we've got Nissa, Liliana, and Jace. These are three planeswalkers, which were all pretty valuable at the time. I don't think any of them really retain any value. I think Liliana might be a couple of bucks. All the walkers are probably a couple of bucks. I'll post something at the end of this video that shows what the box value actually was. Jace was sort of like the poor man's Jace because there was nothing else available at the time, but he's still a 5 loyalty walker for 4 that lets you draw a card, bounce a thing. He's sort of like a strictly worse Mind Sculptor, but in standard he was actually quite good. The Soul of Chandalar, which is I don't think it ever saw play. This was sort of their answer to the Titan cycle. They wanted to do something similar, but not quite. Forgettable. Perilous Vault is nice. It sees play in EDH. However, it's not a foil, so probably everyone has the one copy they're going to need. This is the money card of the set. Urborg, it's probably only like just double digits, but it is a very important card in older formats. Definitely something that you want one of, if not a playset. Since it's a legendary, it's probably something you don't want a playset of. Revoker, probably $1 card, but is incredibly useful in older formats. Definitely something any legacy or vintage player should have a playset of. So Rabblemaster, I think it's since been reprinted, and it's just not that good anymore. This card was defining in standard for a while. It was very good, Had a pretty decent price tag. Now it's something you throw away. I also got these 3 Pain Lands, probably just for EDH. There's some value to them now that used to not be there, in that since they can tap for colorless or colored mana, they fit into some Eldrazi decks. Probably the ones with green would be the ones that you'd be looking for, if any of them, because the green can cast, not Commune with Dinosaurs, but one of the Ancient Stirrings, and get you some Eldrazi. So these are maybe dollar cards, but something to want a playset of in your collection. Scuttling Doom Engine. I do believe that this is a combo piece in some Legacy and Vintage Forge Master decks, because when it dies, it deals 6 damage, so you can sort of cycle a bunch and just dome your opponent. Avacyn Guardian Angel, I don't think it's very good outside of perhaps EDH. In EDH, it's a big flying vigilance creature with a lot of abilities, which always seems to be good. Chief Engineer, I never really got anywhere, but that ability to give all your artifacts Convoke is extremely powerful, and there's some potential in the future that something comes up that makes this card good. Some sort of combo where, turn 2 you drop Chief Engineer, followed by some affinity stuff, some draw stuff, and just empty your deck onto the field. It's not there yet, though. And Obelisk of Erd is another one of these cards that sees play in EDH and pretty much nowhere else. 6 mana is a lot for most formats. Convoke helps the casting cost, but it's a tribal creature deck, so your merfolk, goblins, slivers, whatever have you, and this was obviously in there for the sliver deck. So those are the only real notable rares. Everything else was kind of junk. And then of the uncommons, the only ones that really struck me, so 2 Reclamation Sages. I actually think this is like a $2 or $3 card because it is an elf. It tends to be, I believe, a one-of in a lot of elf-based strategies in older formats, just to pick off a target, because elves have tutoring that lets them sort of cycle through these things. Back to nature, the only reason I point this out is because I played against Boggles in Modern recently. It's not necessarily the answer you want to that, but it is an answer, because it's also an instant, so your opponent attacks you with a big Boggle, they think they have game, you go, nope, wipe their board, and then they're just hitting you with a 1/1. It can force them into overextending, in which case you can just come back and win, because Boggle tends to unload its hand before it attacks, and then it's just a sitting duck if you can capitalize on that. So I actually think that this is a card that you probably want 4 of in your collection, just because it's non-targeted global tranquility at instant speed. Stoke the Flames, there's only one in the whole box, which is surprising. This card was pretty powerful when it came out, because the goblin strategy would generate goblins, and then you can just use them to dome your opponent with big chunks of damage. It's not really usable anymore unless a strategy like a swarm token strategy comes back, and even then it's probably only ever potentially good in Modern, so probably not going to happen. Shrapnel Blast has been a card that's come in and out of the formats many times. It's a lot of damage for 2, and the cost of sacrificing an artifact in addition is not that bad if your deck is built around it. It's actually either you're going to just win the game, you're doing a 1/4 of their life total in damage, or you want to sacrifice that creature. This card I love. It never really got there. For 3 mana, you exile 3 cards, and you can play any of those cards that turn. Now, in a deck that has a lot of 0 casting cost cards, so you can play 1 land, obviously. You can also pay alternate costs, so Fire Blast in Legacy and Vintage. It's not quite there yet, but that effect is so strong that I think one day it could have potential. It'll probably be Vintage, if anywhere, because you can conceivably reveal like 2 Moxes in a land, and it's basically just a free ancestral. But it's 3 mana, and it's red, so who knows? Insult Artifact. This was actually a very good card at the time. It just, for 2 mana, makes an artifact a 5/5 with 1 mana creatures. Or artifacts rather, you get a very early 5/5. It was decent in affinity for a time, because you could turn your Springleaf Drum into a 5/5 very early on and just go for Dome. It enabled some good turn 3 wins, but it is risky. It's an enchantment. Probably, this is one of those cards that you don't really need until it's suddenly a good thing in the format, because someone figures out the thing that it's supposed to enchant. But always good to have a playset of. Diffusion Sliver. So I don't think slivers are great. I know people like to play them, but this feels like one of the most important slivers to have in any given sliver desk. I think probably as a non-foil, it's garbage. But that ability to basically make your stuff untargetable unless your opponent pays an additional 2 every time they do it, um, might as well say your creatures are untargetable. It's really good. And it's a sliver, it's a 1/1, but because of the way slivers work, they get bigger. I got 2 Pride Mages. These are actually see play in Modern occasionally in sort of life gain Soul Sisters decks. They basically just gain infinite life, and this thing becomes infinitely arbitrarily big. So they're just a big dork. They're a lot of times replaceable, and once again, without a foil, it's probably like a quarter. Ulcerate. So this is 1 black instant that gives a creature -3/-3 and costs you 3 life. So I've seen corner cases where this card is really good. Um, Typically in older formats, you're going to want Dismember, but Dismember can cost you 4 and sometimes cost you a little bit too much. Now, the difference between Dismember and this is that this has to be cast for black. Dismember can be cast for colorless. But there are corner cases where this is better, and it's an option you want. So having one of these is good. Rather have the foil, of course. And Tormod's Crypt. If you don't have a playset of these, they're important to own for almost any format where there's a graveyard-based deck because of that. 0 mana makes this card great. Exiling cards from a player's library is not an effect you always need, but when you need it to be amazing, and this is one of the better answers to most graveyard-based decks. And then as far as the commons, there were pretty much nothing in this set that's really worth talking about. It's a lot of reprints, a lot of draft fodder. So overall, not a great box. I did get the best cards that I think I could have pulled, or the best card anyway, in Urborg. And I actually don't think I own all these walkers anymore. I think I probably traded them here or there. So I'm going to go calculate the price of these, and I'll just post it on this video in a minute. But thanks for watching. We're going to do more of these. When Dominaria comes out, I'm probably going to do a box of 2 of those, and hopefully I'll have a better camera setup. Additionally, I think, I'll do a pack every now and then if I can get my hands on a neat older pack to open up, and we can go into more in-depth about those cards. But thanks for watching. If you like this or the other goofy content I post, please subscribe. Oh, that's so YouTube.